Well, I used to keep my money in a cookie jar. It was shaped like a cat, it was a present from my brother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't.
Boom.
We're
And we're
almost
live.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just closer. See
Yeah,
back.
you
here,
like
everybody's-
huddling up on your desk, you know?
Yeah,
You like
sometimes I
getting up
get all huddly, especially when I'm doing stuff. I get all huddly. I get
on it.
huddly.
Yeah. Well, you're into it, man. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
You know, I went through the footage, by the way, of for this Mars scene, and you do realize that you were like looking at the page while you were saying the lines. I'm not sure it's going to work on camera.
I was not told that either actor had a shot at face. I was not told set up a command center so that we can use you standing there talking to me in my little space.
My point
I
exactly.
was not told that your face would be mysteriously well lit inside the astronaut's helmet, and that I would be not only a disembodied voice, but one who quickly started to break up and you couldn't understand a word I was saying.
That was the point of the story. By the way,
I've had extra
you made
roles.
great
I've had
statics.
extra roles in movies. I've been an extra in movies where I had more screen time than I got in this little film.
Yeah, but it's only a minute and a half long. And think about it. Of a minute and a half, you got a good 30
Of a
seconds.
minute and a half, you got 35 seconds of FaceTime.
You got 30 seconds of voice
None.
time.
No,
No FaceTime. No, just voice time. Just voice time. So listen, guys, you know, when we put this up, you guys can tell us.
I have a
if you need to-
NASA hat, okay? I have
Do
a
you
NASA
really?
hat, baseball cap, that Johnny gave me, my brother Johnny gave me to give to my friend Jay Weigel 5 years ago that I just never gave to him. I keep meaning to, just like I did with the coffee mug. It's not like I'm stealing Jay's hat and I've never worn it. However, I mean, Jay's in the film business. He's a composer in the film business. If I told him I only wore it once, it was for a film bit that Mike Mayhew was doing, and I needed to be in a NASA hat, he'd probably be cool with it, man.
Well, so you don't have the NASA hat now.
I have it. I have
Oh, you
never
do-
given
you
it
do?
to you. I'm just like,
Uh,
well, as you know, it takes me a while to pass along a gift.
Well, then let's do that. Let's do that. We're going to refilm your scenes this time with your face, and yes, we can make this happen. We'll do this.
You know,
can
I'm
do
not
it today
trying to
if
be a
you want.
prima donna, Mike. You know,
No,
you
no.
realize I'm talking about. I'm looking at the quality of the film. I'm not.
Right.
This isn't about me.
Right.
This is about just realism in your film.
By the way, I sent it to Skeet. He writes back to me. He goes, "That's really cool. Who's the guy? Where'd you get all this footage?"
Who's the guy?
And,
Who's the guy?
No.
And you know
He
what?
didn't know who I was. He didn't know who I was.
If you watch The Right Stuff, Ed Harris in the command center, not at The Right Stuff,
Apollo 13
Apollo 13.
steals,
Ed
the,
Harris in
steals the movie.
command-
Steals the movie.
He doesn't steal the movie. He gives it the gravitas that makes their life-threatening emergency situation and their daring-do heroics that much more daring-do because he is the rock at the center of their
I just watched that
impending
again.
doom.
I watched that again because I was trying to get inspiration from my little thing, and I have to say, I love that my line towards the end of it where they're like going, you know, the upper NASA guys are talking amongst themselves. It's gonna be the worst the worst disaster in NASA history or whatever. And you know, not Scott Glenn, but Ed Harris's character speaks up and goes, "With all due respect, I think it's gonna be our finest hour." And you know, just his
It's a great scene.
yeah, and just the whole movie. I just there were so many great scenes with him. You know, I love when they go and throw all the shit on the table and go, "All right, we need to make this fit into this, and all we have is this." You know, with all these, you know,
It's a great movie, you
It
know,
is.
and an incredible story.
to be able
But-
to show stuff like that in a movie.
But I mean, you're leading us off topic, which is what makes it a great movie is the rock at the center of the emergency. Ed Harris, the gravitas at the control center. He's not a disembodied voice who's breaking up over the radio. He's there with them in spirit. That's how much of a presence he is.
yes, and so
He
that
can't
that
physically be there with them, but he's there with them. His heart is there with them.
and
just
you know,
saying.
just like many actors, I think you've spoken for your character and defended your character and told what your character would do in the situation, and I have to respect that. as a director.
I have to say, I'm not defending my character. I'm defending the integrity of your 1 minute film.
Of course. I'm sorry.
Because I'm thinking of the overall story arc and what's going to add dramatic tension to it. I'm not at all thinking about myself as an actor.
Of course not.
You know, I'm totally thinking about that moment where it rivets back to Earth, and then the intense danger of this alone man on Mars is brought home by the fact that here's this guy back in the command center, and you can even have some voices going on behind him saying, "Oh, we're going to lose this guy," whatever, and like the Ed Harris moment. You could,
I don't know if I'm going to go quite that far, but I do think the one thing that'll help is that you'll really kind of get a sense of what's happening if there's video along with it. As you start to break up, the video breaks up as well. I think it'll help bring the point home. It's like, oh, he's losing communication, instead of being like, what just happened? So maybe it might be a good thing in the end to sort of help visualize what's happening.
I feel like a proud parent, like I just led a young filmmaker to a point of awareness where he thinks it's his idea.
Yes, exactly. That's the way it's done. Good morning.
That's how the best teaching's done.
Good morning, Mr. Baker. Good morning, Sandy. We obviously started this conversation before you guys joined us today, and so we're already on topic. And
yeah, we're in fantasy world as if we're actual actors and directors talking about. It's a 1 minute clip that Mike did on his what's it called, the program,
Unreal
Real
Engine.
World or
Unreal Engine.
Real Engine. And my brother John, who plans on doing stuff with Mike, he's very excited about the 1 minute clip because he's been trying to convince his screenwriting partner Drew that they should be using this stuff. And for the movie ideas they have, because it'll make it obviously easier to shoot some things that they want to do because they won't have as many locations to go to.
And including including the stuff for 9 Lives, because we want it to be hyper realistic. It's a musical. It should be beyond just realism.
They have a pretty cool idea based on me as a young singer in New York, trying to be a folk singer, working in a deli, and me as an old man kind of saying, "Look at this crazy kid."
Who's going to play you, by the way? They can't have you playing you as a young man, can they?
No, because I'm old. No,
right.
No.
You could be the old Paul.
If they could find a kid who's really good looking but hates himself and thinks he's ugly, then they'll have the part nailed. I ran into a guy in San Francisco on my last trip out there now 3 years ago. Billy Nova, he used to call himself. Back when he was a folk singer. Now he's William, and he's a success in the tech world. But anyway, he came out with a friend, and I went up to him after the set, and he points to me, he goes, "When this guy came on the scene, we thought we were all done for. He had it all. He had the looks, he had the guitar playing, he had the voice. He was everything we were trying to be." And I was speechless for a while, and I was like, geez, I wish one of y'all would have told me. I fucking hated myself. I thought I was an ugly poser who didn't know what the fuck he was doing or talking about, and that I was hiding in corners. And then that pretty much was how there's a great quote from Springsteen I love. He was in therapy for 4 years, didn't make a record for a while back in the early 90s. And when he came out, of course, it was big news. Coming out with 2 records, and he's back, and he's going to tour. And the guy says, "Are you going to still do 4-hour tours?" Because people love that. And Bruce laughed. He said, "Yeah, I love it too, man. I'm still do 4-hour shows, but I found out through therapy that I stay up there on stage for 4 hours because it's the only place I don't feel worthless." And I was struck by the word worthless. He didn't say it's the only place I feel worthwhile. He said it's the only place I don't feel worthless. And that's the sort of secret ugly truth about the performer trip, is that there's part of you that feels like I am great and I deserve their attention. And there's a part of you that feels like I'm such a worthless piece of shit. I hope they don't figure me out. And somebody as big as Bruce Springsteen feels it and cops to it, then it's part of who we are,
Oh God, Sandy, I hope that's not true. She just said you're only as old as you feel, and I've felt 60 for the last 10 years. So I hope that's not true.
You know what, man? When I was 53, my second ex got ill, and I quit music to get a job with my old friend Michael Levy at Dameron Pearson as office supplies.
So 53 was the office supply years.
Yeah, so I was going to try and do the straight world and have medical insurance and try and take care of her in case she was a set dresser, in case she couldn't go back to work. when she got healthy, she went back to work and left me. And one day she'll tell me why. But in the meantime, I was working for this office supply company, and I'm feeling like, well, it's serious, man. My wife's sick, and I should not think about music. And so I wasn't playing. And there was this old guy there. He was 84. He's still a salesman, hustling at 84. And he comes over to my desk. His name was John Shrew. He had a great old New Orleans crusty accent. He goes, "Hey, son, I hear you're a musician." And I said, well, yeah, I was for most of my life, John. He goes, "Yeah, I saw Nat King Cole in a basement in Chicago when I was in the service in the World War II. I saw George Shearing play when I was stationed in Cal. I've seen them all. I love music. So you still going to play after this or what?" I said, "I don't know, John. I'm 53 now. Maybe it's time to, give it up." He goes, "53? When I was 53, I was working on my third divorce. I was out dancing with a different woman every night. You're a puppy."
Right. You're a puppy at 53.
You're a puppy at whatever age you want to be a puppy, baby.
If I'm a puppy right now, I am a really sad puppy. I'm a really sad looking, like the runt of the litter, the one that's too ugly, the one that's so ugly that people are not gonna, like the owner's gonna be stuck.
See, you got to
with
change
his dog.
perspective, man. You're not that puppy. You are Gandalf.
Yeah, you're not that puppy. You're not.
You
that
are
puppy.
Gandalf.
My cat is.
You have.
Oh, there she
You
is.
have wisdom and secret powers. Your cat loves this show. She's a freaking camera hog.
Look at her. It's like, what are you doing?
She doesn't come to you. And when I'm there visiting, she doesn't come and do this to you.
I know. She's like, what's up?
I didn't even know you had a cat the first 3 visits. And then we start having a show, and suddenly there's a cat cuddling with you every chance. I'm telling you, she was an actress in a previous life, or an actor.
She's cracking me up. She's so pretty. Yeah, we call her baby girl because she got sick when she was little. And she had to she was tiny, tiny, tiny. And for a month, she had to just lay in the bed with us. She was real sick. And so she wound up being a real interesting cat. She's little too. She's not one of them big, all the cats we had before, these big, long, Anyway, she's a little tiny, little fat, petite little thing. Who runs the house?
Who runs the house? One of the many reasons I love pets. When they belong to other people.
Right.
I will pet them.
My daughter got bit by a dog working for Uber Eats. So, yeah, pets suck.
No, I mean, they're great little buddies if they're somebody else's. I keep a lint brush handy. I can go back to looking like I'm a person and wash my hands. I don't mind them. Now, the big ones, now, I got to say, I was never a fan of horseback riding. I came from this. I'm from the Irish Channel.
Right.
I loved cities. I'm strictly pavement. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see grass until I was 12 years old, and we got government housing out in the suburbs. I had a brick banquet. We didn't have a sidewalk. We had a brick banquet that I would clean the grass out between it with a butter knife. Jesus. We had a cement small front yard. This is First and Constance, and the backyard was also concrete. So, and the school, I went to St. Alphonsus. It looked like a prison. It had, 20 feet tall fences with barbed wire at the top, and it was all concrete yard. And then in the 70s, they built a new nun house, whatever they call it, the convent, and they had a big giant asphalt parking lot so they could increase for school parking for games and PCA, whatever. And that just became one more playground. We did our jumping jacks on the asphalt parking lot. There was no grass. It was just... I remember being 19 when I was dating my now wife, Allison. We dated when we were 19, and then we went our separate ways for 36 years, and then we found each other again. I was 19, and I was a waiter at the Beverly Dinner Playhouse, which was this place out on the River Road on La Barre. And we were, there were plays, and we were waiters, and there was a bar we could all sing in afterwards. It was kind of a cool scene to be 19 in. And the waiters, wanted to go play football by the Fly, which I had never really been to because Irish Channel guys didn't go uptown too often.
Right.
And I played street football. I was in the street barefoot. At calluses, I could, you cut behind the falcon and reach over the trunk. They can't defend that. That's the kind of football I played. And suddenly we're in the grass. And it's a hot day, and I take off my shirt, and I dive for a pass, and I land in the grass. I'd never sweated in grass before, and I don't know if this happens to everybody, but man, my back was on fire. I just wanted to rip the skin off. I itched so bad. I thought this is the stupidest thing I ever fucking thought of in my life. I'm playing with burrs and grass, and then this thing, and I feel like I got an itch. I just fell one time. I don't do this anymore. I'm going to play street football again.
That's right.
So My first experience with my experiences with nature have been negligible at best. There've been some beautiful ones, but there's also been like, me being just stupid in nature and bad shit happening. Like my wife, Allison's family wanted to go out to some place on the North Shore that had the woods and cabins and like a real communal kind of feel, very nice, little lake, whatever. But again, I'm from the city. So I drive out there and we take the wrong turn and we're on the walking path instead of the driving path. And I'm trying to find their house. I'm stumbling through the woods. I got a Perry Ellis coat on and Perry Ellis shoes, and I'm walking through leaves and mud, and I'm so unhappy to be in nature.
What the hell am I doing in nature?
What am I doing in nature, man? Where's their cafe and cobblestones that I can just go and relax at?
Oh man. So this morning we have a fun guest. I recorded their music last week. At least I'm not sure what they're going to use it for, because like I was telling Joe this morning when we spoke, I can't remember a damn thing. I do remember doing the session. I remember really liking the stuff. I remember doing some rough mixes on it and really enjoying the
You must
music.
have really liked it because you called me right away about having him come on the show and talk about it and play some.
I did. I really did. So I think we should bring him on and say hello. Are you still there, Dale? I think I see him. There he is. How you doing, boss?
There you go.
How you doing, man? So, man, the session that you guys had a couple of days. Where did we do that? It's the Maroney. What's the name of the place? Maroney Wedding House or something?
Opera House. Opera House.
Because I'm an idiot.
Yeah, that's a nice place. I've been there. Very cool.
Hold on, where is he at?
So, Joe, before we get too deep into the work itself, just tell the peoples and Mike and I and myself just a little bit about your own self, where you're from and what you're doing and what this lesson analysis is about.
Hey, I'm Joe Darensbourg. I was born in Tremay. You know what I'm saying? You heard?
Yeah, I heard of that place.
We moved uptown to Carrollton, the Riverbend area, when I was about 4.
Well, that's a different world.
Yeah, so it was like taking you to the suburbs out of the Irish Channel, and
you guys about the same age?
Playing in.
You have similar ages?
Well,
no.
You're a little older. You're 60?
Little is kind of you. Yes, I'm 60.
You're 60. Okay, I'm 55.
Yeah.
I'm
old.
53,
But,
so there we go.
Okay.
All the cards on the table.
Mikey's so glad to be
Yeah.
I love being a kid.
Luckily, you guys are crazy musicians, so I thought, oh yeah, well at least I won't be crazier than them. So this is great.
Oh no.
This is exactly
No.
the train of thought I can relate to in a
Oh
podcast.
yeah, and I have the analyst skills to prove it.
Okay, good. All right, so moved uptown. Let's see. Go to Catholic school.
Didn't we all?
Mata Della Rosa on Carrollton. Work in a little ceramic shop on Oak Street.
No kidding.
And the owner of the place was an atheist Jewish woman from Metairie, and she had a mambo, Miss Irene, who was a Honduran black woman who was a voodoo priestess.
Nice.
So here I am, an altar boy, working in this ceramic shop. This is one of my babies I made at 13. Where'd it go?
There it is.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Little pan.
Damn, at 13?
Nice.
All right. I made this at 13.
Damn.
And,
Pretty great.
well, I mean, So I'm thinking, oh, great. I'm playing in mud, making molds, and having a great time learning about world religions and making idols of Darth Vader and King Tut, and really having a great art experience as a kid. So I went to high school, and I'm going to McMain and Spectrum and NOCA for visual art because I was very intrigued with the art world. And I walk into Kinko's on Carrollton, right on Oak, with my Husky, and somebody said, "Hey, you want a job?" I'm thinking, "Can I get my photos printed for free?" And they said, "Yeah, sure, sure." I'm like, "All right, okay, okay." So I'm hired, and I got to get permission because I'm the youngest person they ever hired
Wow.
at Kinko's. So anyway, that brought me into a world of artists and crazy people because Lenny Zenith, Bill Davis,
Oh,
Kelly
wow.
Keller, um, boy, quite a few musicians worked in Kinko's, and obviously for good
Honey.
reasons, we wanted free shit, and yeah, we also got money because they had at the time profit sharing, so we were
Uh,
kind of we had good jobs at a very
Kinko's was kind
cool
of
place.
the
yeah.
Starbucks of that time period, right? I mean, they kind of had their shit together. Kind of. I mean, I know they didn't sell coffee, but you get the idea. Like they were different looking. They just had a different vibe to it.
Well,
It was new
they
age.
they the owner's name was Kinko's because he had kinky curly hair, and he was from California and a liberal and really cool guy. So, you know, at some point, I mean, I worked there for probably over a span of 9 years, and
Wow.
off and on, you could just come and go. So Bill Davis uh, could go tour and go do all this stuff. Without it being a big deal. You always had work waiting for you. So people would like, oh yeah, come on, we need you on this shift.
I'll tell you two
Uh,
similarities in our stories where our paths diverge. My mom was way into ceramics, like way in. She was good at it.
mm,
Taught other
nice.
kids how to do it. So naturally, my brother and I had to take the class. And my brother John, who was always good with his hands, he could build things. To this day, he's on the show Queen Sugar as art director, and he's always had the vision and the hand skills. He was good at it right away, and I would just make these sort of blobs, and they were meant to be. It was meant to be a mug, but it was a misshapen thing that would had like ugliness hanging off of it. And my mom would always encourage me, son, that was a good try, and it was never ever meant to be. And I gave it up rather quickly, and Johnny stayed with it and has a nice career in that now. And the other thing was getting a job at an early age, because if you want to get out in the world and you want to be a creative, you forge your own path at an early age. So I'm 14, and I'm reading the newspaper, and it says Sanderson Painting Company hiring painters. And I lived in the Irish Channel, and they were on Metairie Road. So it took me like 3 buses to get out there, but I'm going to get a job, because my father was dead when I was 5, and you had to make your way in the world early. I'm going to get a job. So I go out and ring this guy's doorbell, and it's an old man, probably my age now, and he answers the door, and he sees this 14-year-old kid, and he goes, "Yeah, son, can I help you?" I said, "Well, I'm here about the ad in the paper. You said you were hiring painters." And he suppresses a grin, and he goes, "Well, do you have any skills?" And I said, "No, sir, but I'm willing to learn." And he goes, "Well, do you have any other skills besides painting?" I said, "Well, I play guitar, and I sing." He goes, "All right, I'll tell you what. My daughter is 12, and she wants to learn how to play guitar. If you give her lessons, I'll get you a work permit and teach you how to paint." I said, "Deal." So he took me down to City Hall, my mom's permission, got me a work permit, and hired me and paid me whatever the minimum wage was back in those days, $5 an hour, and taught me how to paint from the bottom up. And I was working.
Do you still know how to paint by
Wow,
any?
that's great.
Is
Oh
that one of
yeah,
the
I
things you
still
can
do.
do?
Like if people tell me that they're painting, and I say, "Let me help you because I know how to make this go fast." You know.
Gotcha.
Now, in fact, John Herbert, the harmonica player, and I, we were on a paint crew in the late '70s, early '80s, and when they were redoing the Mint, which is now the Jazz Museum, they had redoing the whole building because it was a shambles. So we had
Mm.
6 weeks to paint the second floor, and it was big, man. It was a lot of stuff. It was going to hold a lot of archives. And about the second weekend, there was a store across the street that had some po' boys, and we'd have breakfast, and then instead of going right to work, we'd play a little stickball and roll up a big roll of tape. And there was this big room, and we had all the rolls, the tape rolls, and we're playing stickball for a couple of hours. And after just a couple hours of stickball, we'd have lunch. So a few weeks went by, and we barely got any painting done. And the boss was going to come by at the end of the day to check out the work. And it had been 6 weeks; we were supposed to be finished. And the electricians had come in a couple of days earlier, and done some conduits and they had burned where we had already painted. So they had to send a painter in with a spray gun to fix it. And that guy took a lunch break and we said, hey man, we replaced the paint. Can we use your spray gun for a bit? And he went like, yeah. And then we just refused to give it back to him. We were just like, here's some money, go have a drink. We need it for about 4 hours, you know? And we sprayed everything. And by the time the boss got there, we were finished. And John Herbert was a foreman and he walks around, he's like, John, I don't even see brush strokes. This is some of the best work I've ever seen. And we kept our mouths shut, man, because we hadn't done shit.
Cheaters.
So you were a smart kid. That's cool. Smart.
Well, if that's what you want to call it.
Wicked smart.
Oh, you did time in Boston.
Yes, he did.
Did time in Boston. I wouldn't put it that way, but
we have some Boston listeners. Shmoo actually will be on.
Who's in the Boston area? That's right. And yeah, I love Boston. I worked on a film there in 1989. When were you there?
2000 to 2013.
Wow, that was a long run.
Yeah. Well, it went by like that, so I didn't even notice.
It's a great town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you were at Berkeley, right?
Berkeley.
No,
remember,
at
was
Harvard.
me. That's it. Yes.
Harvard.
By the way, Joe,
you almost got away with.
Oh, that's right. Mike misinformed me that you went to Berkeley.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
It was his fault.
Yeah, I wouldn't go to Berkeley. It's a formulaic school, like a method school of. No, I was studying something else. It was way different scene.
What were you studying at Harvard?
Ethnomusicology for classical Turkish and classical Arabic music.
Wow.
And playing in the orchestra. But that's another story. So I'm still working at Kinko's. Yeah, I'm growing up. And I appreciate that story about getting on 3 buses to go somewhere and make a deal with somebody that really gave you a chance or an adventure to add to your repertoire of stories that build up who you are. You know, that's really humbling to hear stuff like that. Because I never looked for a job in my life in New Orleans. This is sort of one of those towns where everybody knows each other, and it's very incestuous. So luckily, you know, I can speak in code and be very careful about privacy and all that because we got a lot of confluences between all 3 of us that you may not be aware of, but it's kind of fun to be the fly on the wall and know what's up. All right,
that's
so
one of the things about being old is that a lot of people know who you are, and some of them love you.
Some of them.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
Right.
Okay.
We can do about that anyway.
So, you know, as a kid growing up uptown, you know, my mom would take me to go buy a record at Mushroom Records.
Oh, yeah.
On Broadway. And I'm looking around, and as an artist, you know, I'm making molds, so I'm not sculpting clay by hand. I'm pouring with a gas pump with slip clay liquid and filling up molds. Yeah. But what I mean is I'm not doing the, you know, spin it on a table, making clay. I have to go on a
You're not like
I
Demi Moore and Ghost,
that.
is what you're saying, right? You're not like doing
No.
Because I had
no
pictured you as Patrick Swayze, as a young Patrick Swayze.
Oh, okay.
Creole Patrick Swayze.
Yeah. So anyway, I go to Mushroom Records and I'm like, oh, in a wonderland. There's like a barrel of Hirachis. There's like purple light posters and all this paraphernalia in there. They're like these beautiful glass, hand-blown glass perfume bottle looking things. And I'm like, Mommy, I want to work here when I grow up. I'm a kid. I don't know what the hell. There's like, these are bongs and all kind of pipes and shit. And I'm like, man, I'm glad I didn't know what none of that was.
Just like fish in water.
Eventually, so anyway, I end up working at the small Kinko's on Broadway as growing up, still with Kinko's. Sure. And the one little place doesn't have a toilet in there. It's like thousands of students coming to get their packets for Tulane and Loyola. And I mean, it's a madhouse. But again, artists are coming in and they're building portfolios, and they get to know me, and they're like, oh, well, Joe's good and he's going to get your shit done like today. So I built a rapport with Lynn Emery and Steve Sweet and a pretty big group of famous musicians. But at the time, one guy was doing this project that I apprenticed with, Steve Sweet, and he was putting people's bodies on the copy machine and photographing them. And eventually, when we got to David Byrne, there ended up this beautiful silk screen print of a sort of bizarre David Byrne image at the downtown Kinko's, because John Odell and Carolyn Odell, who were brother and sister music team, basically had that image down there. So, I was kind of, getting intimate with a lot of this art world, and it got very creative. And by high school, my art teachers at McMain said, oh, you ought to go to NOCA. And I said, well, what's that? They said, well, that's an art school where you can leave here and you don't have to be here all day. You can just go make art. I said, oh, fuck that. Yeah, hey, I'm into that. So half the day I go to NOCA uptown on it was on Prairie Street up near City Audubon Park. And so art is becoming a big, serious part of my life, and I'm really into it and loving it. And so for NOCA, I got to do one of the prized windows at Kinko's on Oak Street, because you made it as an artist when you've done some art. Okay, so meanwhile, Kelly Keller's, a musician's girlfriend of Bill Davis. Mm-hmm. And she's working at Mushroom Records. So she goes, hey, you want a job here, little buddy? And, there's a job. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm in. I want to work here. So I'm working at Kinko's, Mushroom Records, and I'm living the life. I got money. I got friends. And a high school, Ivan Bodley works at Mushroom Records, who was on your show, which is the reason I thought, let me go on the show. It'd be fun to catch up with these guys. So Ivan's working there. He's at TUL doing the radio show. Kelly had a radio show with Katie Caraway that was a Country Kate at TUL. So it's like this big music scene going on. So Kelly is a big influence, pretty much, a friend. I'm making a friend with a older, beautiful woman, and, she's got this musician boyfriend, and they're real cool people, So working at Mushroom, started bringing in new music into my life about what kind of music was up. And in high school, I had a best friend, Michael Brune, and he says, you remind me of Two-Tone. And I said, what's that? And he says, well, I got it. I can show you. So this kid takes me to this club, the Rose Tattoo.
Ah, the Rose Tattoo.
Across from Tips.
Yes, indeed.
So I guess Waka Waka's playing.
Ah, great band.
Sal and all this crazy. So they're playing this music, and it's like we got these albums of all these ska bands, and this kid opened my world to like black and white kids making music in Europe or England, and it was hot. It was like this big, cool intellectual scene of kids that became the Specials, that became Selector, that became all these groups that was sort of influencing this weird post-punk thing that was kind of wild. So it was very interesting at the time. So growing up in this scene was, again, intimate. So by the time the diverse music scene was going on, hardcore punk music came along for us. So the Sluts were playing at the Rose Tattoo. The Sluts.
The Sluts were just
And
right there.
every other punk band in town
You
became
know,
like this explosion of
everybody
punk
had
music.
their favorite Slut story. But my brother John
Yeah,
saw him on
that's
Jed's.
another show. That's
And
another complete show.
you know how Dave had the long mic cord. Well, he's playing one night at Jed's, and Jed comes in and he's drunk, which was not unusual. And there's not a whole lot of people there. There's maybe 30 people in the club. And he walks right to the front of the stage where Dave's singing, and he just starts yelling at him. You can't even hear what he's yelling because he doesn't have a microphone. He's just right in Dave's face yelling. And Dave takes it for a while. He's singing, and then he just leaps off the stage onto Jed's shoulders with his crotch right in Jed's face, and he grabs the back of his head and pulls his face close to his crotch. He's got the microphone, and Jed's running around the club trying to shake him off of his shoulders, and he's still singing the fucking song.
Yeah. That's a good Slut story. Although on at the Rose Tattoo, Dave would take the mic and the long cord and run out in the street on the avenue at this point.
Of course.
And he was out of control. He was like a nut.
Yeah.
But
He was-
I'm a kid and
It's the
and
most
I'm
awesome
seeing
thing
like
you've
this.
ever seen, right?
Hey man, I'm like, damn man, these people are crazy. but fun because I'm at home
Yeah.
and I have 4 sisters growing up uptown, and all these guys have become my brothers at this point because I'm like living the life. I got money, I got friends, I got art, I got music, and so I'm just having a great life. All right, so these other groups started coming to play with the Sluts. Black Flag, the FUs, the Butthole Surfers, all these incredible bands that were serious hardcore punk music that was like, pretty regular guys playing, like Dave Turgeon playing this part. Because Dave Turgeon was an uptown boy. Chris Turgeon, I mean, I knew all these people growing up, so they were not like these. They were theatrical beings. They were,
Right.
they were
But he was
cutting
a
up.
great performer.
They were cutting
Such a-
up. Yeah. So the point is if you got it, you knew these people and you spent Mardi Gras with them and had a family. You go meet their grandmothers. It's a different
Right.
scene than knowing the Sluts 12-inch debut album. Okay, so anyway, I'm in high school and I'm like living the life, man. This is just the best time of my life. And so there's another group from Metairie called Disappointed Parents. And they're, so the suburban kids were different. They came from the grass and the families and all this stuff, and they were mad. They were angry at everything. This is where I Hate God and everybody who's adults now. These groups were kids, but they really were mad at their parents, and so they had a different vibe. They were really angry, but they were creative, and they were trying to express that angst and that sort of primal scream. They were trying to get it out, and that's pretty much it. If you knew them, then it was that.
It's funny that every generation of rock and roll creators thinks they're the ones who are mad at their parents.
Right. It's a
Like
normal, right.
nobody's ever been this mad at their parents before.
Right.
Well, these kids were livid at their parents, so they wrote songs and named their bands.
Anybody who ever picked up a guitar to rock was livid at their fucking parents.
Except Elvis. Except Elvis. I think he liked his mom.
Except Elvis, who loved his mother, but he didn't rock a guitar either.
Didn't he though? I mean, he didn't rock a guitar.
No.
I was not mad. I was not mad at my parents.
There are exceptions.
So, right. But again, I'm somebody with 4 sisters, and I got to get out of the house because, okay, I'm a kid now, and I'm still underage in the light of all this stuff going on. So someday, the Disappointed Parents are recording a 45, and, they go, hey, man, come sing on this record we're doing. The song is called Fuck Drugs. Now,
Nice.
It's a play on words. It's like, Reagan war on drugs, and so anyway, we're screaming on this record, going "fuck drugs." You're screaming, and okay, so here we are making records now. Okay, so that's where the hardcore scene came from with grassroots. You're doing it yourself. You're making your own T-shirts. You're buying Maximum Rock and Roll. You're talking on the payphone to people from Canada, California. So it brought in all these punk bands from California that were touring, and we started booking bands with.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
we lost a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So I finally met these people who were, I guess, girlfriends of some of the Red Rockers and a lot of the new wave bands and stuff. And they were part of the scene and stuff. And so they started a magazine called Null and Void. So I was known famously as the photographer of all these punk events. I had pictures of the Misfits up close at Jed's and all these places. And the famous night of when the Misfits got arrested with all my high school friends because they didn't know how to go home, started many, many legacies of historic references in New Orleans punk history. My friends got arrested. They were in the newspaper. They went to jail with the Misfits. So it's a pretty famous story and its history. But I'm the guy that's got all the photos of all the whole documenting the whole period. All right, so Mushroom Records, building a rapport with the punk scene. At this point, Bill Davis is in the Human Rays. There's no Dash Rip Rock yet.
Yeah,
So
they opened up for Fred and I's band, the Backbeats, in Baton Rouge at the Chimes, the old Chimes.
Exactly. So I'm right behind you, Paul, following like in the footsteps of just maybe 20 steps behind you of everything you're doing. So Kelly and Bill, they bring me to Baton Rouge, where my dad's from. And, they show me the scene there with this kind of new wave music, and it's kind of humorous because, for me, I'm like, dude, this ain't no hardcore punk music. This is like, this is Baton Rouge. This is boring.
Yeah,
Right.
It's a whole different scene.
But it was getting my chops about like the business and what's going on in the scene of that. And in the future, working at Mushroom Records, we got free tickets to every concert there was. So that was another plus of working in these cool places. So we saw every heavy metal band, every anything that was going on in that age. It was great. And it was great to have free tickets to everything, free records. It was just the best. Again, I'm living the life, having a great time. And
man, when you told me that you were in
every minute of it.
When you told me that you were in Shot Down in Ecuador Jr., I remember that band. Like, I remember just, you guys had such a big reputation in New Orleans when I was a kid, when I was like 14 and 15 years old, because I came up, I was like a guitar player, and they had that Metairie group like that played covers basically, right? They played there were these blazing guitar players. I'm 5 years behind you, so I'm thinking about these bands, Ronnie Snow and what the fuck, Lillian Axe, and these kind of bands.
Pantera.
Well, Pantera, right? But I mean, Pantera actually was even. I'm talking about the cheesy fucking guys, right? Lillian Axe, that's the cheesy shit, right? They're doing.
No,
but you know what I'm saying? They're doing the covers basically off the radio, right? But I remember just hearing about you guys on every time we were doing it. It was like, oh man, you seen Shot Down in Ecuador Jr. Flies. Obviously, you worked at Kinko's because your fucking name was everywhere in the city. Like everywhere you'd walk, there was posters and shit, saying Shot Down in Ecuador Jr. So it worked, man, because. I don't know how big you guys ever got, but I thought you were the biggest fucking band in New Orleans without a doubt.
They were very from New York by that time, but y'all got popular fast.
So let me tell you this formula of how that happened. All right, so one day Kelly comes up and she gives me a cassette, and I'm like, "What's that?" She said, "Oh, well, they want you to sing for their band." I'm like, "What band? What are you talking about, man?" I said, "I don't. Do they know I can sing? I mean, what's the problem?" She said, "Look, Joe, you work at Kinko's. you know everybody, and you can get free flyers, so they want you singing their band.
Right.
Awesome.
And I'm thinking, man, what the fuck is this? Who are these people?
That's awesome. Right.
So
Go ahead.
I'm living my best life again, and now somebody wants me to be a rock star now.
Right. Things just keep getting better.
Okay, yeah. So
I assume that led you to Harvard and music.
It's funny that you keep
not
mentioning Bill.
not at all.
even in the least.
Another chapter.
Keep mentioning how
So-
much you knew Bill Davis. And it's funny about Bill and I's paths have always been similar. But I'm like incredibly, as I mentioned earlier, I had incredible self-worth issues. So I'm incredibly antisocial and really afraid of being near anybody. And Bill had had a reputation that people would use, like people used to keep like me from wanting to get close to him, and then they would tell him things that keep him from wanting to get close to me, and then our own natural behavior kept us apart. Like we'd bump into each other and assume that the other guy didn't like the other guy, but it's just me being scared to talk to the world, which I've been my whole life, and him thinking, oh, that guy didn't like me, And we were easily manipulated. I don't have to name the people who manipulated us, but people knew us both, and it's pretty easy for anybody to do that for me because I generally am fairly antisocial out of, I meditate and have therapy, but I have ongoing self-worth issues.
Right.
So that's why music is a good outlet for a lot of these behaviors, because Bill was really shy and a kid. I mean, he was the same way. He probably was more like you in many ways. He was very, very afraid, but Bill was packed with
he
all
was
this
already
talent.
a teacher. He was already a teacher when he was in Human Rays, which
Yeah,
I was
but
like
he was
knocked out by that.
But Bill was packed with a lot of talent, and Bill had studied classical guitar. So at this point, Bill's making me a demo tape on his Fostex cassette mixer. He's playing flamenco guitar for me, singing some songs in Spanish. And I mean, I'm telling you, this guy is like brilliant. So being around him and Kelly and their house was sort of, again, a fantasy of like everybody in the world is going to their house, and it's the beginning of Dash. So it's like all this great shit's going on. So Kelly's booking Dash Rip Rock, and then she eventually, after making me the singer of this band, she starts, booking us, and we get all the sloppy seconds of Dash Rip Rock. So it's like the only reason we got all these great gigs is because Kelly is the mastermind of making this shit work, because she was brilliant at that, which is really nice to have a girlfriend that not only believes in you and supports you and everything, but again, self-esteem and everything else. The guy who had it all, you guys know him personally, and so it was really self-destructive about the idea that he couldn't believe that this beautiful girl was not being faithful and all this stuff. That, so it was a lot of problems, and anybody would understand how temptations of rock and roll and starstruckness and all this insanity can
Especially
fuck
when
with
you're
you.
young.
It's a really
And when you're young, you
Yeah, and they were very young. So my point about it is again, when it's still innocent. Okay, so this band that's going to happen, I had one prerequisite that I insisted, and it was the name of the band. I said, I'm not going to be in any fucking band called The Anything. I'm not going to be in The Call, The Backbeats, The Cold. I said, fuck that. Okay, I don't want to be in The or The Anything. So I'm watching Mary Tyler Moore, and there's an episode. Rhoda is in a clothing store with Mary trying to buy young clothes, and it's a name of a store, Shot Down in Ecuador Jr. And I'm like, fuck, let me write this down, man. What the hell are they talking about? So Rhoda says to the girl at the store, what's the name of this place? She says, Shot Down in Ecuador Jr. She said, what does that mean? She goes, So I'm just like, okay, wow, this is some esoteric shit. Let me write this down. So that's where the name came from. So I named the band.
Nice.
And I was trying to keep up with the New Leviathan Oriental Foxtrot Orchestra. And I said, hey, I want a name long as theirs. And it will stick because I force everybody to say Shotgun Ecuador Jr. So I was loving it. I was like, yeah, so it was real punk rock to have that
Look, man,
name.
I have never seen your band when you were young, but I knew the name of your band. And there's so many bands that I've seen that I don't know the name of, but I've seen them. I remember seeing them when they were younger, but I don't necessarily remember their. But yes. But you got to tell us about this. We're kind of starting to run low on time, but you should tell us about this new project you're working on and how you got to do. What you guys are trying to. Because it's beautiful music, guys. Anybody who's listening, check this stuff out.
We have some to play at the end of the show, Michael?
I don't, because none of the stuff's really mixed yet. They did it for doing, and I look for some stuff on YouTube, but we'll keep an eye out, and we'll make sure you guys know. And if you got some YouTube links and you want to share them, Joe, I'll put them up in our description so people can go check your music out.
We usually don't do that. You got to come to these events. These are like serious events. So tomorrow we're playing at, if there's no thunderstorm, again, this was canceled. Now tomorrow we're supposed to play at we go from the New Orleans Marigny Opera House to the New Orleans Mosquito, Termite, and Rodent Control headquarters on Simon Boulevard.
Right.
To play for the Seeds and Beats. It's a organization of planting wildflowers program. So it's a sort of interactive cultural thing. And so we're playing tomorrow night from 7 to 8, and there'll be a talk back is what they call it. So they'll interview us and talk to us about what's going on with us and stuff. But technically we're an ensemble. Everybody plays violin and cello and viola and stand-up bass. So we're a chamber group, but we focus on Louisiana Creole music, and my ancestors all spoke Louisiana Creole and Louisiana French. So I'm bringing back a lot of the indigenous languages of my triracial culture of Ishaka-Takapa Nation, Creole, and Yoruba tradition. So in this group, I finally found a group where I can do all the musics of my cultural background, which is Louisiana, and give a sort of outlet for it that's not dance music, but sit down and go to a concert in a chamber. Like you're doing folk music, you sit down, you don't get up and slam dance at Paul Sanchez's acoustic gigs.
Right.
Well, traditionally, the Creoles were very educated peoples, and the musicians could read and write music. And John Boutte has said to me that was really the creation of jazz, was that the field hands John has told me that the African slaves that were more field hands could sing the blues, but they didn't know how to read, write, or more importantly, read a contract. And the Creole musicians became intrigued with the in-between notes that the blues could create. And so it was a trade-off. It was like, you teach me that music and I'll teach you how not to get fucked on your gigs. I'll teach you how to read a contract. I'll teach you how to read music. And the combination of the two cultures, the African culture with the Creole culture, created American jazz.
Interesting.
So speaking of jazz, the reason I go by Joseph Darensbourg is my great granduncle is Joe Darensbourg, the clarinet player who played with Kid Ory and Louis Armstrong. He was a clarinet player for Louis Armstrong. So my dad was a Joe, so I go by Joseph. And hence the name, again, I named this group Les Senel because it's a book by the gens de couleur de Libre, who were the free people of color, who, from Treme, wrote this book that is a book of poetry called Les Senel, and it means mayhaw berry. So this book is from the period 1845, a compilation of poems written by people of color, first in resistance to Reconstruction and Jim Crow law. So Plessy versus Ferguson. So that's a reference to why we're called Les Senel, to bring attention to this actual book. So 20 years from now, Mike, when you're thinking, oh, Les Senel, well, at least you touch something with Les Senel to kind of know what's going on with it. Anyway, we can have we can have coffee because Paul, I do want to be your friend. I made friends with you on Facebook, so now we can hang out now that it's post-COVID. And I can kind of
I got a
fill
question
you in
for you about your band and the music you played the other day. So those were poems that you guys.
ensemble.
I'm sorry, the ensemble.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You get paid more money. Get paid more money. I can help you out.
Yeah, I'm gonna need, obviously, dude. Paul can tell you, I have no couth or anything like none of that stuff. It just doesn't.
No,
And I
yeah.
love that.
But so your ensemble.
Boston helped with that for me.
Yes, I bet. But the music.
Boston helped me appreciate that.
Were those? Was
yeah.
that?
Sorry.
Did you guys create the music that was going on, or were you playing standards, or was that?
No. These songs are from the plantation, from 1840s to 1880s, written by the people of color from the plantations who sang these actual songs that Louis Moreau Gottschalk and I mean, believe me, it's a lot of details, but since we're all crazy musicians, it's really rich with a lot of info. So the reason I chose this name was to kind of give people a stepping stone to something of substance and raising consciousness with advocating literacy around Louisiana history. There's only 5 copies of this first editions of this book, and people should be ashamed in New Orleans for not knowing this book. It's Les Sennel and the poets. Lanoux is the compiler or editor of it, because we had newspapers here that were written in French and English that my grandparents read. My dad was a baker at Leidenheimer Bakery. My grandfather, my great-grandfather. So I'm a German Creole first. So my family are shoemakers in Baton Rouge. They're bakers in New Orleans. And I'm a bookbinder. I also learned bookbinding in Boston and worked for a 100-year-old bookbindery in Boston and got a vocation. But I also I'm a member of the New Orleans Musica de Camera, oldest chamber group that's classical, early music that's medieval. And my dad was a foreman at his other full-time job working for Milton Sherman, who was the founder of this group, the Musica de Camera. And he makes all the instruments that I play that are beautiful medieval copies of instruments because he's an architect. So my dad took me to see this group when I was a kid, and it was another big influence on my musical repertoire to be able to partake in all these incredible outlets. I sing for the Panorama Jazz Band. I record with them. I play Jazz Fest with them. I play at Preservation Hall with them, at Spotted Cat, at Fritzl's.
Ben Shank?
Yeah, so another mentor of mine, but living the life,
okay.
you know, I'm really, again, back to being rich.
Beautifully eccentric fellow.
So
I have to say,
well, I want to...
we run to the end of the show, but I got to say, like, it's truly inspirational, and I'm touched by the fact that your life, your art, your music, everything is dedicated to the preservation and the enlightenment of your culture. I think that's a beautiful way to live one's life, is to try and shine a light on the beauty of what was, what is, and what can be.
And like you're saying, just literacy of the past is a wonderful, you know what I mean? It's just, you got to know, you know.
You have to know.
John Boutte and people like me, you know, a lot of our families, you know, were these triracial mixes of Native American, French, and African, or European and African and Native mix. They were dancing in Congo Square. And so that's why we don't want City Hall in Congo Square, is the main thing about preserving stuff like that. But I'd be happy to have a cup of coffee or email you guys to give you more details of the specificity. But we got a lot more rock and roll. We got a lot more rock and roll confluences that is another time. But I really appreciate hanging out with you guys.
Absolutely, we had a great time, and and we have to. I mean, that period of New Orleans music where we talk about it a lot, where Paul came up during, you know, when you were learning the stuff that you were doing. We do mine that a lot, so we'll have to bring you on again sometime and kind of dig into sort of the music scene of that time. What was that, the 90s or 80s? 80s?
Oh, that was in the
80s.
80s.
Yeah, but see, the first guitarist that helped start Shotdown was Gerald McCullum, Johnny McCullum, Nicky Sassenbach.
I remember
Bruce
that name.
Rayburn was our drummer. Bruce Rayburn was our drummer who ran the jazz archive at Tulane University. So
kidding.
full circle, the group I'm in now is a reflection of all the people who, again, brought in these confluences. But our connection to Dash, I think,
Gerald was a unique guitar player. He heard really creative and different kinds of parts. I really loved the way he played. I played in a band with him for a while.
Yeah, to this day, Gerald, these guys, like, they were my brothers. They were my older brothers that would play music for me. Alex Chilton, Glenn Styler, all these people would play music for me and say, "Hey, Joe, listen to this." So I had a rich growing up here.
Gerald turned me on to Savoir Doucet. I hadn't really known Cajun music, and he said, "Oh, you have to check these guys out." And he was really committed to it. And I actually went and saw him live.
You ever thought of writing a book, Joe? Just sort of mining through some of that old stuff?
I've journaled throughout ever since Noka. We keep journals, so it's all written down. But my mind is so scrambled. Had I not written it down, I wouldn't know. But you just brought up, as I said about Gerald, and the first recording I did of these songs that we're doing with Les Nell, I recorded with Steve Riley and the Mamu Playboys, Al Berard, Christina Balfa. These are the original people from the French music scene in Lafayette and Eunice and Mamu. But they gave me these songs. So Cranston Clements, his mom Nelda, his whole family except Dave, Dave Clements is a great friend of mine. Circle Bar
and just a great guy.
What do you call it?
Snake and Jake's.
Well, I was out with him the other night, and he calls me last night. He goes, "Joe, you know where my credit card is? Because did we have beer at the brewery, Courtyard Brewery?" I said, "Yeah, dude. Do you have that $100 bill you were trying to pass off the other night?" Dude, he didn't know. I was like, "Dave, you're getting too old for this." But
he still looks good. I saw him a year and a half ago. He
looks amazing.
I know. I'm like, damn.
I
know
He's hanging out with this little young girl. She must have been 26 years old, and
he looks like he did in 1986.
I know. He looks better than he did then.
He actually looks.
I think
he looks better. And here, it must be the booze. The
Maybe
booze
so.
Don't lose.
The booze don't lose, I guess.
He's pickled. No, he looks.
All right.
He looks exceptionally well.
To say goodbye. We're several minutes over now.
Yes,
it was a gas. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for the edification.
Yes, thanks for that. Yes, I'm very respectful of all this stuff. So, and I do want to know more. So, just if I ever seems off, if I come off flip, I apologize. I don't mean it. I do want to know more.
Nah, we're just idiots.
Yeah, we're just idiots.
Dude, I lived in Boston.
That's right. Flip. That's the thing I love about that town is everybody in that town is Flip. It's just like
pick up your skirt, you Mary. What do you want? A cup of crybaby soup?
I'm certainly part masshole now, so believe me, I can keep up.
Masshole, I love it.
I'm definitely part masshole.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thanks for listening. And Friday we'll be back with Luis Marquez from Chicago.
Yep.
Chicago Lou with the Superhero Review.
You guys take it easy. Thank you so much.
Well, I used to keep my money in a cookie jar. It was shaped like a cat, it was a present from my brother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. Well, her hair is as black as an alleyway, and it used to be red, and it used to be blonde. Truth is, her hair changes color all the time. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. Well, I'm staring at her shoulder, but it's not what I see when I hear two fellas fighting in the booth across from me. So I wipe away the ashes from an empty can of seat, and I wished I wasn't homesick, I wish I was asleep. right up against my chin. And I knew